we have these sheets called concept sheets, and we have, one problem per sheet. And we develop the sheet before we make the ad. A while back, we would jump into filming, whereas I feel that filming, it succeeds when it's 80% preparation and then you go for it and it tends to work out better if you know exactly what you're filming for. So focusing on the one problem, developing the idea first and then filming really helped improve our ads.
Welcome to the DTC Insider podcast, where online business owners come to find actionable tips and tactics to grow their businesses. Now, here's your host, Brian Roisentul.
Hey, welcome to another episode. I'm Brian Roisentul, your host, and today I'm super excited to interview Victoria Melnyk. She's the co-founder of Sunbabe. She and her sister founded the brand in 2018 and bootstrapped it to 7 figures, serving over 250,000 customers. That's a lot. Hey, Victoria, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
So why don't you start by telling the audience more about you and Sunbabe?
So I'm the co-founder of Sunbabe. Sunbabe is a hair care brand inspired by an easy, natural beauty that is unique to the individual. Our goal is to make products that enhance the beauty of hair and feel intuitive and easy in how they work. And we're currently known for our hair lightening and core product, Solar Hair Lightener.
And so the question I ask almost every founder I meet is, because it inspires me to know the main motivation of, why they started a company, because there are thousands of companies in every single industry or almost every single industry. AI is new and there are many AI companies already. So why did you decide that you wanted to create just another company? What did you want to change back then? And why did you decide doing it with your sister?
Sure. So a story comes to mind. My sister and I founded Sunbabe in 2018 from this place of curiosity and love for beauty that happens naturally in the world, especially in hair. Well, when we were in our late teens, we went through this phase of bleaching our hair blonde. The process was very inconvenient. It was a painful investment in time and money, and the look, was sort of different every time you'd get it done. It was also quite hard on your hair. Eventually it would snap off, and I committed to this process for many years in pursuit of a look. And after becoming a bit more secure as an adult and kind of recovering, growing out our natural hair, I believe Angelica's experience was similar. I started looking for ways to accentuate my hair that felt more like it was my own hair and not like I was completely changing it and bleaching the life out of it. And so in pursuit of this, Angelica and I were at a family cottage one day reflecting on hair, and we discovered that we shared a core memory of someone in particular who really lived in her own natural beauty. It was a young woman that we encountered when we were teens going through that phase at church camp, a camp counselor named Marta. And Marta just glowed in her unique beauty. And what was special about her look was that she didn't try. She had these sort of very beautiful sun-kissed highlights that came not from the salon, but from spending a full summer outside. And her hair and her look was just a result of her lifestyle. And this effect was so beautiful, yet so low effort. And we were inspired by this subtlety. And our first product, Solar Hair Lightener, was made in pursuit of this sort of very kind of nuanced sun-kissed look. That was just sort of like that's our founding story. But since then, we've expanded our product line in the same spirit of effortlessness. And with this ethos, we've connected with our community of customers.
Did you have any prior experience designing these type of products?
So my background is actually in sales and art. We connected with our cosmetic chemist to help us develop the products. Yes.
Nice. And could you please tell me and the audience, of course, about the product development process? Because, I have heard so many stories in these podcasts, and I'm always amazed because some people, some companies just test the product a few times. Some others test for, 10 years. Some do blind tests until over 90% of customers choose them over their competitors. So I've heard many stories. So how was your process to making sure it was the product that made you and your sister happy first?
Sure. So, there was a learning curve. There is a pretty streamlined process for making cosmetic products. We had our lab in Canada, and there's a process where, you pick your ingredients and you collaborate with the chemist. But what was actually way more difficult, I would say, is creating the plastic, the packaging for the products. I think this is something that, this was a few, many years back already, but we found quite difficult to get the look that we wanted. We found that to be a steep learning curve.
Right.
Communicating with the factory, creating molds, working with colors. It actually took us almost half a year to get to a result that we were happy with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So take me back to that moment, please. You received the first batch of products that you were happy with. What was next? Sorry, who were your first customers? Let's say unknown customers besides probably your, inner circle. Who were your first customers? How do you get them?
So the primary way that we grew Sunbabe and gained customers was sharing pictures and increasing visibility through Facebook ads. And, I think about it like having a business is this balance between creating and operating, and both are important to survive and grow. I'm fortunate because my co-founder and sister, Angelica, is a very talented operator. Not only is she talented and she enjoys it, so I'm the one who gets to focus on creating for Sunbabe, working with our team to create images, create copy, strategy, and the products and packaging. And a main theme that I kind of continue to run into in my business, especially when thinking about resonating with customers, is this paradox of creating for yourself versus creating for others. And the magic and the trick is that, and we found this when we were starting out, and we still, think about it today, is that when you create for yourself, including images and content around something well or something that matters to you, you end up connecting with other people more and serving them better because you know the thing more intimately and why it matters. And you're creating the product or content for its own sake because it means something to you versus creating things that you suspect other people might like that you might not really understand or resonate with. So that's why, we didn't really focus on jumping on any kind of like trends or competing. It's not really a part of this. It was more, we were our own customers and we knew what we wanted our own hair to look like. And that was our kind of led us toward our North Star.
Yeah, that's great. And I agree everything you said. Like, I have met so many amazing founders that think the same way. And that's why, based on their experience and the experience that we have at the agency with working with many brands as well, is that founder-led content is really, really important, even more in this case, when you truly believe in what you do. Otherwise, why do you do it, right? When you truly believe in what you do, you just need to get the megaphone and the speaker and shout it out loud, or as loud as you can. And that's content creation in 2025, right? So founder-led content is great. If you're a founder and are shy or don't want to create content in public, that's fine. Trying to find your voice as a brand, whether it's by putting yourself on camera, a team member, or somebody else, is really important because it's what will make everything that you do resonate with your audience even more.
Yes. I mean, I see the founder-led content working a lot for some accounts. We don't really do the founder-led content. We do create the images and products for ourselves, but I found what really works well for Sunbabe is showing the results and kind of positioning the customer as the hero and Sunbabe as the guide. And that's kind of the approach that we take with our content, showing the before and afters. And that is also how we started as well and how we continue with our socials.
Okay, so for those not familiar with the hero journey story, could you please tell them more about how it works? Because there's a beautiful framework behind it that they might be able to apply. And if you tell them how you guys do it internally, if you want, of course.
Sure. A gem that I have maintained from my experience is understanding that gaining and resonating with others and customers, it's not just about your products and not just about what they literally do, although that is important. It has to be a good product, goes without saying. The value and the potency is in the ability to tell the story of the transformation that your product offers in your communications. So how you're going to get your customer from where they are now and bridging the gap to where they wish to go or who they wish to become. And so your product might beautify someone's hair or clear their skin or offer a better night's sleep, but the real magic is in how it helps them feel more like the person they are becoming or want to become. And your product is found along the way because they're already on their way to becoming that person. So the product is the bridge. And that's something that took me a while to learn, but our kind of marketing became way more effective when we learned this and absorbed this and kind of used that as a guiding point.
Right. So
yeah.
For the audience mainly, it's less about you and your brand and your product and more about them, your customers, right?
Exactly.
And it's,
yes.
Yeah, and on a separate note, as you said, it's two things. It's telling the transformation story, but not about there are many books on these. One is Building the Story Brand by Don Miller, and there are some others and some authors, and we can mention many of these. But the important thing is that there are two things. One, the transformation story, and the other one is the benefits. But there are two layers, or at least two layers I know of, at least the external and the internal. So for instance, if you think about the chewing gum commercials or the toothpaste commercials, they applied perfectly. So the classic chewing gum commercial, it's been a while since I watched TV, but let's say back in the day, at least they used to be as follows. There was a guy who tried to approach a girl or another guy, whoever. So they chew gum and they approached the other person. But what happened in the process is that the commercial is not focused on the flavor of the chewing gum, how the tasty it is or whatever. It's about the before and the after, the transformation. So before, the guy or the girl, they were shy, insecure, they wanted to approach the other person, but they couldn't. And then after they chewed the gum, they felt like, superpowers, and they were like empowered to do that. It could be with let's say a significant other. It could be with the boss in the elevator. They don't want to talk and then they eat the chewing gum. So whatever. That's a clear example of how they use it with the toothpaste commercials. It's the exact same thing. It's what they do for you, but it's not the immediate benefit, but it's how that makes you feel before and after, as you said, Victoria.
Yes, I think that's really well put. It's the outer transformation that the product offers is just, it's one piece of the puzzle, which is an important piece. But what really creates the resonance and attracts the right people to be your customers is where the inner shift happens. Just like in a good story, like you said, there's an outer conflict and an inner one. So yes, the hero is slaying the dragon, but then there's an inner story about what that represents, whether it's, courage or coming into oneself or growing or, stepping into a new identity. It's the same with product. So what are we really talking about here? We're talking about using story to strengthen the resonance of your brand and to attract the people who your product is right for. So it sounds like kind of esoteric. So what is the actionable takeaway? So in practical terms of like how to apply this. So I think the most kind of basic or fundamental is that when we market, we don't focus on the product or features of the product. We always try to find ways to focus on the end result or how the customer is going to thrive or, how you will take them there in your communications all of the time. It comes back to that. So finding ways to show them that through pictures, copy, and packaging. And that's why the before and afters have been such a large part of how Sunbabe communicates and posts. Also, there's this book. It was a really key one for me called The Hero and the Outlaw, Building Extraordinary Brands Through the Power of Archetypes by Margaret Mark and Carol Peterson. And this book was so key for me because it helped me understand how to make the brand mean something, which is basically what brand is all about. Brand is about meaning and associating. And they talk about this through embodying an archetype. So what does that mean? So an archetypal image is an image that can be reproduced at any time and place. And they're powerful because they instantly communicate meaning to the human mind because they point at universal patterns. So an example of an archetype is like the tricky little man that lives under the bridge, or, the healer or the queen or the innocent. And the idea is to pick an archetype that embodies the guide that will guide your customer to where they wish to go. And how that all kind of fits together, where your brand is the guide, the customer is the hero, and then the marketing is how you tell the story.
I love it. And it's because in a constantly changing industry, e-commerce is changing so fast. Meta, Google, AI, like you name it, everything is changing so fast. And it's probably a very different world compared to when you started in 2018, pre-pandemic. But this is a principle that is, evergreen. I think it will serve you now, it served you then, and it will serve you in the future, because storytelling is not going away. Quite the opposite. Without going into technicalities, but, if you're trying to acquire customers through Meta ads, Google ads, or whatever, TikTok ads, why not? Well, you need storytelling. If you want to have a beautiful website or a clear website, high converting website, you need storytelling and so on. You need storytelling everywhere. Pieces of content, everything. Your brand, if it lives online or offline, it needs storytelling, and it's one of the main levers or main ways to stand out from the crowd as well, right? It's what makes you different. Not only the product is key, but what the layer that comes on top is that, right? What do you think?
Yes, I think that's so true, because, if you are a DTC brand, of course there needs to be competency around the ad buying and that part of the business. But then we try to kind of limit how much we think about the actual Facebook machine, and remember that there is a person on the other side of your communication. And that's where I like to focus on.
No.
Like, you had to resonate with the person on the other side,
Okay.
what kind of questions they have, and how to best serve them.
This person on the other side, we are talking about your customers or potential customers. You have
Yes.
served over 250,000 of them. That's monumental. How did you, first off, what do you feel, when you hear these big numbers, these milestones, and how did you get to serve, over 200,000 customers?
So, I think the key is to really kind of narrow down the North Star and the message, and this informs your advertising. And we've already discussed that stories are a very effective way to communicate what your brand means and show customers where you can take them so they can thrive. So a story that I come back to in my mind when I'm making things for Sunbabe is this one trip I took, leaving a place I used to live, where winters were very gray and bitterly cold. And I remember stepping off a plane somewhere beautifully warm and getting to the beach and peeling off my layers and feeling like I was, almost shedding a second skin, becoming lighter and closer to the core of myself. When I came home, what I had left to remember it by were these tiny little golden highlights in my hair, these little sun-soaked reminders. And I think that this is somewhat of a universal experience. There was this outer change, but also the inner shift. And so that's a story that I feel like you have these kind of little portfolio of stories and ideas that you can reference when you're making the communications that go out there. I like to try to focus on, stories and meaning that is somewhat universal and that other people can relate to. And then I think that's because it did happen, because that's why we started getting many, many pictures. A cool thing about Sunbabe is our customers love to share pictures of their beautiful results, and then we share them to our page, and then it became sort of a flywheel.
That's amazing. And how many of you, how big is your team? That's probably a question.
Yes, we're a team of 6 people.
And you started with your sister, and when did you incorporate the first team member?
Yes. So we were just us for probably 2 or 3 years. And so I was doing all the customer service myself. And that was the first hire that we made. Well, we had our chemist, who's fantastic.
Right.
And, but our first kind of internal hire was our customer service rep, who's still with us now. And she's amazing. I don't know what we would do without her. And now she has a little team underneath her as well. That was the first hire that we made, and that's a hire that I wish that we made sooner. Although it does help because when you do the customer service yourself, you really understand what your customers need, and you're able to set up things like drafts and for your team because you know your product the best. And this way you can kind of help equip your customer service team to answer the questions well that people have.
It's always a good thing to take care of your customers, like to take care of the customer service or customer success department as well, because you can interact firsthand with your customers and hear from them. They're getting, their words, how it's not only what they say, but how they say it. So it's always good. And then when you have a great person taking care of that as well, the feedback that you get from them is amazing. And it's something that brands incorporate into their marketing as well. There's a story that I always mention, last year, I think it was Upbee's CMO, Upbee's a supplement brand. They were bootstrapped and they grew to, high eight figures. I think they are doing $50 or $80 million in less than 4 years or so. And they were in the podcast a few years ago and I followed them and they built in public. And basically they said that they were, iterating concepts for the ads all the time. And they have a beautiful community, over 100K members or something like that. And one of them said that one of their supplements helped them with the fupa. Is the thing here in the lower belly when you have.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
I didn't know what that was. I'm not from there, so I didn't know. So I tried to get the context, and I did. And it's basically that they weren't using that term. And they saw that many people were resonating with that in the community, so they started using that in their ads. And back then it was one of the best performing ads because that resonated with them. So they already knew what they wanted, but they weren't using their words. And once they started doing that, they were getting even a better response from them.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's also a tool we use at the agency sometimes. I have mentioned it many times. I'm not affiliated with it, but basically it's, there's something you said that resonated with me because I'm a firm believer in that. And it's that it's key to, nail the right message for the right customer at the right time, but it's not easy to put that into practice. So there are different things that I always advise brands to do because it's not one single thing to dial the message, because what people feel and need today is not what they feel and need tomorrow. So it might change because things change all the time these days. So one thing that I saw many brands do, because many brands care about, the return on the ad spend or ROAS, they care about revenue, they care about many things. But when it comes to, believe it or not, try to understand who their customers are. Whenever we onboard the brand, depending on the brand, they these days feel it like the avatar or the ICP worksheet we give them. They fill it with ChatGPT. And it's like, a big no. It's like, we all get it. It helps with, the lengthy task, but not that one. We need to know who they are. So one way of knowing more about your customers is, of course, calling them. Many brands I know, 8 and 9-figure brands, not only brands starting out, call their customers. Sometimes it's the founder, the CEO calling VIP customers. Sometimes it's the customer success department calling 3 cohorts. One, those who have never bought, prospects. Probably they are subscribed to your email list. They check you out, but they don't buy. Those who bought once and never again. Lapsed customers, or twice and never again. And those VIP customers, because all of them are going to yield different results and different insights. The other one is to leverage post-purchase surveys. There are great tools out there. One I know is No Commerce, KNO Commerce. Again, no affiliation with them, but I know it's probably number one out there. There are many, of course, but basically you embed the survey in the thank you page when they make an order, they place an order, and it's effortless for the customer to answer 2 to 3 questions. And it's not questions that you can use only for attribution purposes. Like, where did you hear about us? Was it Google? Was it Meta? Or was it TikTok? It's probably questions to learn more about them, depending on your vertical, right? Are you buying for yourself or somebody else? What was the main need that you had, or what was the biggest reason why you chose us? Who did you consider, or which other brands did you consider before buying? How long have you been following us before making your first purchase? Whatever, you know? But the thing is that you get a lot of insights. And the other one is that there are tools that will scrape Reddit. This is just one tool. There are others, and you can build audiences based on subreddits. You input the keyword, and the tool will give you the results for the potential subreddits. So in your case, it could be hair care or something else. And once you build the audiences with AI, it will summarize different type of conversations. For example, money talk, pain points, and some others. And of course, that's free. And if you pay, you can go to the source and read exactly what they are saying. But one way or the other, you actually get a sense of their pain points, the opportunities to, the commercial opportunities, let's say. So one way or the other is important for brands to learn more about their customers so they can build a message that resonates the best for them.
What we find really helpful when we're experimenting with messaging is we'll assign one concept or problem per ad. So we find that that's very helpful to communicate and to find out what really matters to people, right? And it's called, I believe the concept is in copywriting, it's called the one thing, where you focus on one main problem and one main solution per message, and it can be very rewarding because you can see what ads really take off and what resonates with people and what's actually important to people, and then people will have little conversations under your ads. That's been a very worthwhile process for us.
Yeah, because I think that's really on point, because many brands try to, and we've all been there, I think many brands try to communicate everything that's great about them, or everything they can accomplish, or they can help their customers with, in one single piece of communication. And that creates just noise. When you try to say everything, say nothing, right? So this is smart, like one angle, one solution, one thing per ad. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. So we even it took us a while to get to this method, but building out a process for writing the ads really helped our business. So we have these sheets called concept sheets, and we have, one problem per sheet. And we develop the sheet before we make the ad. I find that, a while back we would jump into filming, whereas I feel that filming, it succeeds when it's 80% preparation, and then you go for it, and it tends to work out better if you know exactly what you're filming for. So focusing on the one problem, developing the idea first and then filming really helped improve our ads and our result.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's not about improvising. It's about getting ready, trying to do, the due diligence about, research, doing research about your customers, what they want, what their biggest pain points are, and then try to break that down into what you call the concepts, right? And then addressing one of them at a time. I think that's amazing, because that creates a clear message for the customer. So that's the most important thing. So this has been great. I know we are on time, so I would love to ask you, because you already mentioned a book during the episode, and for those who have been following us for a while know that at the end of each episode, we love when the guests can recommend a book if they have any. So in this case, you already mentioned The Hero and the Outlaw, and that will be in the show notes, of course, as always, at the DTCinsider.com. Is there any other that you would like to mention, or just that one, which is a lot already?
So I would say two books that I would recommend. Oh yeah, two books that I absolutely loved this year. Oh, and last year. I recently read something called The War of Art.
Yes.
Which I found, clarified a lot for me around how to create, from a place of authenticity and overcome resistance. I thought that was really excellent. And then the second book is called The Effective Executive. And as a sort of bootstrap founder, I found this book very helpful because it helped paint a picture of, how somebody effective manages their time and, takes responsibility for their organization. I found that book really enlightening, sort of a classic. Yeah, so those are the two kind of recent books I would recommend, or recent for me.
So as always, as I just mentioned, you can go to, if you're not already there, of course, you can go to the DTCinsider.com. And then from there, if you go to the podcast section and find this episode, you will see the show notes. It looks like a lot of steps, but it's not. Like DTCinsider.com podcast section. And when you find this episode, you will see the show notes, including everything we discussed, as well as these 3 books, The Hero and the Outlaw, The War of Art, and The Effective Executive. So it was great to have you here. I appreciate your time, Victoria, and everything you shared with me and the audience. Before you go, could you please tell them where they could go to learn more about you and your brand?
Sure. Well, I'd love for you to check out our Instagram, which is at Sunbabe Hair, and our website, which is sunbabehair.com.
Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
This episode was brought to you by BSR Digital. We help DTC brands grow through paid ads and email marketing campaigns. If you'd like us to help your business grow, head on over to bsrdigital.com and schedule a call with us.